Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the fanfiction guy, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku Fell for Momo and Kendo. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. In a typical Japanese junior high classroom, a boy with freckles and messy black hair tipped with green sat quietly, lost in thought as the class neared its end. He gazed out the window, oblivious to the bell ringing and his classmates leaving the room. When he finally snapped back to reality, he hurriedly packed his oversized yellow backpack, panicking about missing the train. He rushed out into the mostly empty hallway, eager to get home before the weekend began. On his way, he stumbled upon a hero fight. In this world, people were born with quirks or superpowers, leading to a mix of heroes and villains. While some used their powers for good, many sought fame and fortune, blurring the lines between heroism and villainy. Among the true heroes was All Might, whose identity and quirk remained a mystery, except for his status as a UA Academy graduate. UA Academy was renowned for training some of the most famous heroes in society. Drawn by his fascination, the boy approached the scene of the battle. A villain held a hostage with a fireball hovering dangerously close to her head, while three heroes stood by, seemingly hesitant to act. The first hero, Death Arms, was known for his incredible strength, while Rock Lock could immobilize objects, and Kamui Woods controlled wood as armor on his body. The crowd watched anxiously, but the freckled boy felt an urge to help. Without thinking, he moved closer, and when the villain hurled the fireball at him, it singed his arm. Undeterred, he threw his backpack at the villain's face, causing him to release his grip on the hostage. At that moment, a scraggly man in the crowd transformed into All Might, who swiftly delivered a powerful uppercut that extinguished the flames. The crowd gasped in awe at the legendary hero. The boy helped the freed girl toward a paramedic crew, who placed her on a stretcher. The girl thanked him, her cheeks flushed, and he felt a rush of warmth as he took in her appearance. She had orange hair styled in a high ponytail and wore a middle school uniform unfamiliar to him. He stammered a reply, feeling nervous yet hopeful as she smiled before being taken away in an ambulance. Suddenly, the boy found himself surrounded by the heroes, who looked displeased. Death Arms admonished him for his reckless actions, insisting he should leave such matters to the professionals. A bystander defended him, arguing that he had saved the girl's life while the heroes had hesitated. As the tension escalated, the boy quietly slipped away, feeling a mix of pride and anxiety. As he walked home, nursing his burnt arm, a gust of wind caught his attention. To his astonishment, All Might appeared before him, engulfed in a puff of smoke. The boy stuttered in disbelief, asking what the hero was doing there. When the smoke cleared, All Might stood before him, looking frail and coughing. He made a light-hearted joke about his appearance, but the boy was too awestruck to respond coherently. All Might, noticing the boy's reaction, asked for his name. The boy, still in shock, managed to introduce himself as Izuku Midoriya, wiping his face to appear presentable in front of his idol. "But what do you need, All Might?" Izuku asked, his nervousness evident as the man approached him and placed a hand on his head, prompting Izuku to look up into his neon blue eyes. "Young Midoriya, your legs moved on their own, didn't they?" All Might inquired, noticing the tear that fell from Izuku's eye at the memory of the earlier battle. "Why, I couldn't just stand there. That girl could have gotten hurt," Izuku replied, his emotions overwhelming him as more tears fell. One thing that great heroes have in common is that their legs always move on their own. "Young Midoriya, would you like to become a hero and my pupil?" All Might asked, and Izuku, overwhelmed with emotion, clutched his chest before responding. "Yes, more than anything," he answered, standing with All Might against the backdrop of a stunning sunset, marking the beginning of their master-student relationship. An instant answer. "Just what I expected." All Might chuckled, though it was followed by a cough that reminded him of his condition. "Meet me at Dagoba Municipal Beach tomorrow at 6 in the morning, and be ready to prove yourself." With that, they parted ways, symbolizing the transition from one generation to the next. The next day, Izuku woke up filled with excitement. He quickly showered, ate, and dressed in workout gear, donning a pair of black shorts and a sleeveless gray hoodie. He called out to his mother as he dashed toward the beach, arriving breathless and sweaty, hands on his knees. Looking up, he was taken aback by the heaps of trash scattered everywhere, with All Might standing at the railing between the sidewalk and the beach. "Welcome, young Midoriya," he greeted calmly, but Izuku could only respond with a confused expression. "Before I give you the chance to succeed me, I want you to clean this beach," All Might instructed, then demonstrated his strength by punching a mountain of trash into the ocean, revealing a breathtaking sunrise and sparkling water. "And this power could be yours." Izuku was awestruck by the display but soon realized the implication of All Might's actions. "All Might, you just threw a pile of trash into the ocean," he remarked, causing a bead of sweat to trickle down All Might's face. "Just forget it." Over the course of 12 months, Izuku diligently cleared the beach of trash while incorporating exercises like swimming laps and running around town. His hard work paid off. He had become stronger than ever, sporting a toned body and a six-pack nearing an eight-pack. He could now compete with top athletes in speed and strength, though his muscles were denser rather than bulging, enhancing his agility. On this day, Izuku finished the last pile of trash just as All Might arrived to inspect the beach. Standing atop the pile, he admired the sunrise and the glistening ocean, wiping the sweat from his forehead. When All Might stepped out of his truck, he was astonished by the transformation. "Oh my goodness!" All Might exclaimed, shifting into his muscular form to emphasize his excitement, making his presence known to the young hero in training. Izuku jumped down to the ground beside his mentor, nearly causing All Might to stumble in his skeletal form. "Thank you, Sensei. I wanted to make you proud to choose me as your successor," he said, his stuttering habit mostly gone except around strangers. "Then it's time I tell you my secret," All Might began, looking at Izuku, who was now the taller of the two. "Young Midoriya, my quirk is called One for All. It is a power passed down through generations, growing stronger with each successor. However, the user is destined to confront All for One, a villain who takes others' quirks away. I believe you will be able to defeat him." After a moment of silence, Izuku shed a tear, feeling honored. "I'll make you proud of what you've created, Sensei." "Then eat this," All Might said sternly, holding out one of his hairs. Izuku was taken aback, but All Might remained serious. Hesitantly, Izuku took the hair and swallowed it. Almost immediately, he fell to his knees, clutching his abdomen as a wave of discomfort coursed through him. The sensation felt like poison spreading throughout his body, but it transformed into a surge of energy that built within him. As the pain subsided, he felt an overwhelming power awakening inside. All Might watched as Izuku slowly rose to his feet, moving toward the beach with determination. "What will you do now, young Midoriya?" he thought, observing his pupil. With newfound energy coursing through him, Izuku focused on channeling One for All into his right arm. As his veins began to glow, he paused, taking a moment to breathe deeply in sync with the rhythm of his heart and the energy within him. Gradually, the glow intensified, and green electricity enveloped his body. Before testing his power, Izuku turned to his mentor, who was still in awe. "I guess it should have taken longer. But I think I have an idea of how to handle it," he said, as All Might shook his head to clear his astonishment. "One for All is like my heart. It pulsates in a rhythm but quickens as I use it." Yet it felt like it was a part of him that he was born with, only realizing that his body was prepared for it as if it were his destiny. All Might commented on Izuku's poetic nature, chuckling as they both shared a light moment. A year had passed, and a villain was blocking downtown traffic after enlarging himself and breaking a utility pole. The punching hero, Death Arms, swiftly caught the pole as a crowd gathered, while the rescue specialist Backdraft controlled water with his fire hydrant hands to manage the situation. Kamui Woods arrived on the scene, and several girls squealed, likely part of his fan club. He jumped to the railroad, narrowly dodging the villain's fist as it slammed down. Izuku stood back in the crowd when he spotted a giant woman running in the distance. Clicking his tongue, he was soon encased in a shroud of lightning that went unnoticed by the civilians and heroes. He quickly changed into a hoodie and jeans, leaving his school uniform behind. Back at the fight, Kamui used his quirk to swing away from the villain, who roared in frustration. Kamui landed on the villain's hand, running along his arm to wrap around the other wrist. However, he was thrown back, landing on the roof of the train station. He declared the villain the incarnation of evil and prepared a capture technique called preemptive binding. Lacquered chain prison. Just then, he heard two voices from opposite sides. A giant blonde woman and Izuku launched their attacks simultaneously, delivering a dropkick and a punch that knocked the villain unconscious and reverted him to his regular form. The giant lady stumbled back slightly, while Izuku landed on the broken edge of the railroad. She introduced herself as Bnha Lady, playfully winking at the crowd before shrinking down as the police arrived. Izuku helped Death Arms clear some rubble from the fight. Once the news crew and police arrived, Izuku planned to leave and retrieve his belongings from an alleyway before returning to school. However, he was stopped when Kamui Woods grabbed his shoulder. Izuku reminded himself to play it cool, thinking that heroes were just people like him. He turned around, ensuring the heroes couldn't see his hair or freckles, only his glowing green eyes. Kamui, noticing Izuku's efforts in the cleanup, asked if he was a new hero. Izuku humbly replied that he was just in the right place at the right time, his lightning shroud flashing intermittently. He expressed his concern about the potential harm the villain could have caused if Bnha Lady had continued her attack. Kamui nodded in acknowledgement before turning to the camera crew, only to find Izuku had vanished from sight. He continued discussing the small battle with Death Arms while another crew focused on filming Bnha Lady's debut. Meanwhile, Izuku retrieved his belongings from a nearby alley and changed, blending in as just another civilian while rushing to Aldra Junior High. In class, Izuku sat at his desk, staring out the window as he analyzed Bnha Lady's quirk, which he presumed increased her size and strength. His classmates were engrossed in discussions about the new video featuring the mysterious hero and Bnha Lady defeating the villain. He overheard a reporter asking Bnha Lady how she felt about the mysterious guy who had attacked the villain alongside her. She expressed her appreciation for his timely intervention and cleanup efforts, but then mentioned that he had used his quirk without a license, suggesting he could be seen as a threat. Izuku felt a mix of pride and frustration at the thought that his actions, intended to save lives, were being viewed with suspicion. The bell rang, interrupting his thoughts. The teacher entered the classroom with a stack of papers, announcing that it was time for the third years to consider their future plans. He tossed the papers behind him, and some students subtly used their quirks, signaling the start of a new chapter in their lives. The class was buzzing with excitement about their plans to enter the hero course. Most students enthusiastically showcased their quirks, except for two: a sandy blonde boy who was trying to nap and Izuku, who was lost in thought as a small bird perched on the windowsill. The teacher acknowledged their enthusiasm but reminded them that using their powers at school was against the rules. Despite this, the students continued to demonstrate their abilities, and the sandy blonde boy finally spoke up. The boy, Katsuki Bakugo, protested, insisting that he didn't belong in the same category as his classmates, whom he deemed inferior. His classmates reacted with shouts, but one student, with a bushy hairstyle, could vouch for him, even if their quirks were less impressive. Katsuki declared that he was destined for greatness, having aced the mock test and aiming to surpass All Might, the number one. The teacher then mentioned Izuku, who was often referred to as quirkless. This drew laughter from the class, but Izuku remained unfazed, knowing this reaction was inevitable. He thought about how oblivious his teacher could be, reminiscent of a character from a different story. Suddenly, Katsuki slammed his hand on Izuku's desk, causing it to break and finally grabbing Izuku's attention. He taunted Izuku about his lack of a quirk, but Izuku stood up, grabbed Katsuki by his uniform, and pushed him against the wall, asserting his own strength. With a calm demeanor, he returned to his seat, the desk miraculously intact. Meanwhile, All Might was busy chasing a villain made of sludge who had stolen lottery tickets. Back at Aldra, after class, Izuku checked his phone and saw news reports about himself and Bnha Lady, who had thwarted several villains that day. As he prepared to put away his last notebook in his oversized yellow backpack, Katsuki snatched it away. Katsuki insisted they weren't done talking, holding the notebook high as his friends gathered around. They laughed when they saw the title, Hero Analysis. Izuku, with his hair shadowing his eyes, asked for it back, but Katsuki responded by damaging the book and tossing it out the window. Katsuki's friends continued to mock Izuku, but he remained composed. He reflected that most top heroes had stories from their school days, and his would begin with standing up to bullies. In a sudden burst of energy, he pushed Katsuki into the wall again, followed by throwing his friends on top of him in a pile. He then jumped out the window to retrieve his notebook, only to find the bird from earlier pulling it from a koi pond. With a soaked and damaged notebook, Izuku walked home, contemplating the upcoming entrance exam for UA High School. As he walked under a tunnel, he heard movement in the sewer and activated his 5% star shroud. He cautiously backed away as green sludge began to ooze from the sewer lid. Moments later, a creature made entirely of sludge emerged. It rushed at Izuku, but he punched it, sending it flying apart as the sewer lid flew off and All Might appeared. All Might thanked Izuku for handling the villain and praised him for his earlier actions. Izuku handed him the captured villain in a soda bottle, and they exchanged farewells before Izuku headed home. Upon entering his apartment, Izuku was greeted by the sight of his mother cooking dinner. She rushed over to hug him, and he lifted her off the ground for a moment, sharing a joyful reunion. She asked if he had a nice day, and as she returned to cooking, Izuku admired how she had maintained her health over the years, looking youthful despite the passage of time. No one could tell if she was Izuku's mother or sister, as they could easily be mistaken for siblings, and they actually had been. Izuku mentioned that he had seen the new heroine's debut, recalling her name as Empty Lady, while he took off his shoes and removed his backpack, which bore a faint stitch mark where Inko had sewn it. Before he could head to his room, his mother spoke up again. She expressed her disappointment, saying he shouldn't have done what he did that morning. Izuku, feeling a bit nervous, turned around with a feigned innocent smile. Inko, arms crossed and wearing a stern expression, used her quirk to pull a knife toward her. She pointed out that he was terrible at lying and reminded him that they had just gone shopping for that hoodie last week. With a small pout, she instructed him to change, and Izuku hurried to his room, feeling a mix of fear and admiration for his beautiful yet intimidating mother. After a few minutes, Izuku emerged in jeans and a forest green muscle shirt, prepared in case his mother decided to take him on another shopping spree. He sat down on the couch, while Inko took a chair beside him, relieved that the knife was no longer in sight. He apologized for worrying her, explaining that he couldn't let anyone get hurt that morning. Inko, however, was more concerned about where he had obtained his newfound power. She fixed him with a glare that could silence anyone. Desperate to escape the situation, Izuku asked her to promise to keep it a secret. She assured him that he could trust her. He revealed that his power was called One for All, passed down to him by All Might a year ago after he had prepared his body by cleaning up Dagoba Municipal Beach. Since then, he had tried to help people when heroes weren't around, and he felt that if he hadn't intervened that day, Empty Lady would have sent some people to the hospital. Just as he finished explaining, a breaking news report interrupted them, announcing that a villain was terrorizing the downtown district and had taken a hostage. The heroes were attempting to negotiate, but nothing seemed to satisfy the villain. Upon hearing this, Izuku bolted toward the door, pausing only when he realized his mother hadn't said anything. Inko encouraged him to go, expressing her pride and urging him to be the hero he always wanted to be. Tears welled up in Izuku's eyes as he nodded and jumped down the apartment complex. In mere seconds, he used his quirk to reach the scene, spotting the sludge villain holding a black-haired girl who appeared barely conscious. The heroes were holding back civilians, and Death Arms was trying to reason with the villain when a reckless individual burst through the crowd, attempting to blast the sludge apart with explosions. Unfortunately, this only caused the sludge to spread, capturing both him and the girl, while the heroes remained inactive. The villain, with a mad scientist's glee, exclaimed that he had two specimens, one with a strong quirk. Izuku, filled with determination, activated his star shroud, surrounded by green lightning. He criticized the heroes for their greed, claiming they only sought fame and money, never helping others for the sake of it. As the lightning intensified, he prepared to confront the villain. Death Arms shouted a warning, urging him to retreat, but Izuku remained resolute. He propelled himself closer to the villain, reeling his fist back before delivering a powerful punch that created a massive gust of wind, blowing the villain and the hostages away. Izuku managed to catch the girl before she was swept away, calling out to see if everyone was all right. He held the black-haired girl in his arms as the sludge spread across the street, while the reckless individual lay unconscious on the ground. Silence fell over the crowd as they processed what had just happened. Izuku's arm and eyes glowed gold, and he felt a surge of healing energy. The girl in his arms woke up, looking a bit flustered and asking to be set down. He complied, both of them blushing as they exchanged thanks before hurriedly leaving the scene, each feeling a mix of embarrassment and relief. Izuku then dashed through streets and alleys, still enveloped in his lightning shroud, until he finally returned home. He watched as several heroes spoke to reporters, criticizing him for not having a license, for allowing Katsuki to get injured, and for not considering the lives of those in the buildings or on the street. Ignoring the noise, he stayed home with his mother until a knock on the door interrupted the tension. To his surprise, Yagi Toshinori stood at the Midoriya apartment door. Izuku let him in, and they settled on the couch. He asked what brought his mentor there, and Yagi confirmed that he had heard about Izuku's actions. He handed Izuku an envelope, explaining it was from the government regarding his heroics. With a chuckle, he wished Izuku good luck and reminded him that he was free for the day. Izuku thanked him respectfully, and as Yagi headed for the door, he reminded Izuku to call him by his first name. "You may be my student, but you've already surpassed me and will continue to do so," he said before closing the door behind them, leaving the two green-haired family members to themselves. As Izuku gazed at the door, a wave of nostalgia washed over him, accompanied by a rapid yet powerful pulse throughout his body. Inko interrupted his thoughts, encouraging him to open the envelope. He nodded and pulled out a small check and a license, then began reading the letter that was included. "Izuku Midoriya, for your bravery in defeating a villain when no other hero would, you have been awarded a temporary hero license along with a small check for your accomplishments. This will only be known to UA High and the government, but you have received a recommendation and are permitted to confront any villains you may encounter. Congratulations, but please visit the police station to receive a form from Detective Tsukachi. The details will be explained there." He was embraced by his mother, and they both began to cry. "My little boy is a hero." The next day, Izuku went through the usual classes before finally being released. He made his way to the police station to find Detective Tsukachi. Upon entering, a receptionist with black hair and hazel eyes greeted him. "Young man, how can I help you?" she asked. "I need to meet with Detective Tsukachi." "Are they here?" he replied. The woman quickly dialed a number on her phone. Shortly after, a black-haired man wearing a tan trench coat and hat, along with slacks and a dress shirt, approached him. "Izuku Midoriya?" he asked, and Izuku nodded. "Follow me then." He led Izuku to a simple, slightly messy office where Tsukachi sat behind a desk while Izuku took a seat across from him. "You're here to get that form for your license, right?" Tsukachi inquired. "Yes," Izuku confirmed, and Tsukachi handed him a clipboard with some papers. "Fill these out, and I'll give you your license." In a matter of minutes, Izuku completed the basic information about himself, including his date of birth and address. He received his license, which included a photo of him that seemed to defy logic, but he chose not to question it as he walked home, keeping an eye out for any villains. As luck would have it, he spotted a villain causing chaos downtown with a giant flytrap sprouting in the middle of the street. "Come on, where are the heroes?" the villain shouted from within the plant's grasp. "At this rate, I should have just taken the bank." He joked as Death Arms attempted to approach, but another flytrap erupted from the ground, nearly catching him. Instinctively, Izuku ducked into an alley to change out of his uniform into a hoodie and jeans, leaving his clothes in his oversized backpack. Bursting out of the alley, he was enveloped in his star shroud, with only his glowing green eyes visible. He leaped onto a lamppost, standing confidently. "Hey, Green Thumb. You want a hero? Well, here I am." Izuku called out before jumping toward the giant flytrap. He soared over it, reeling his fist back and striking just as he passed above the monstrous plant. The impact caused the villain to be thrown to the ground, unconscious. "Death Arms, you okay?" he asked as the other hero struggled against the remnants of the flytrap. "Yeah, good. Thanks for the save, but didn't we tell you to stay out of trouble?" Death Arms replied, and Izuku chuckled. "I'm a hero, my job is to help people. I hope you don't mind me taking down the villain for you." He jumped back into the alley to retrieve his belongings, but was stopped by officers who had not witnessed the fight. "Hands in the air. Right where we can see them," one officer commanded. In response, Izuku raised his hands. "Sorry, do you need to see my hero license or something?" he asked, a hint of sarcasm in his voice as he retrieved his new license and tossed it to the group of officers. They caught the card and examined it before returning it to him. "Sorry for the mistake. You seemed a bit suspicious jumping into an alley after that villain was defeated." With that, they left without further questions, and Izuku continued on his way home. The journey was uneventful, aside from the encounter with the flytrap villain. Although he had not been difficult to defeat, Izuku felt a sense of accomplishment, knowing he would be compensated for his efforts, potentially allowing him and his mother to move out of their cramped apartment. When he arrived home, he found his mother in the middle of a workout in the living room. She was dressed in yoga pants and a sports top, and Izuku stood there, momentarily taken aback until she noticed him. "Oh, Izuku. I didn't see you there," she said cheerfully, finishing her stretch. I suppose so," he replied, feeling a bit flustered as he used his quirk to retreat to his room. He thought about how he struggled to talk to his mother without stuttering, realizing that if he wanted to get a girlfriend, it would likely be awkward. As he set his bag down, he noticed a black and green trimmed messenger bag on his desk, accompanied by neatly folded clothes. The outfit consisted of form-fitting pants, a green hooded cloak, a simple black t-shirt, armored gloves, and boots. Most of the clothes were black, except for the cloak, which had gold trim. It was a simple yet striking design that would surely make an impression. He decided to try on the outfit, thinking that his mother must have bought it for something important. Without overthinking, he slipped into the clothes, which fit snugly yet allowed for easy movement. When he emerged from his room wearing the new attire, his mother, Inko, squealed with excitement, reminiscent of a high school girl seeing her celebrity crush. She exclaimed how cool he looked and hugged him tightly, causing him to stumble back and hit the wall. Realizing her excitement, she quickly controlled herself and explained that she had made the clothes for his hero outings. Izuku took a moment to activate his quirk, testing the durability of the outfit against his 5% form, which usually stressed his normal clothes. To his relief, the new clothes held up perfectly, stretching to fit him comfortably. He told his mother it was perfect and mentioned he might go out for a field test later. Inko reminded him not to forget his wallet and ID, and to ensure that any villains he encountered were handed over to the authorities for payment. As he gathered everything he needed and tucked it into a pocket of his cloak, he headed toward the door. Inko stopped him one last time, reminding him that he was a hero now, before bursting into joyful tears. With Class 1A, about 19 students were already gathered, waiting for their sensei. It was surprising that they were late, but no one knew who their teacher would be. In the meantime, they chatted about various topics, including a new hero who had recently emerged, how exciting UA would be, and who was missing from their class. Their curiosity was piqued when the door slid open, revealing a man emerging from a sleeping bag, who was unceremoniously thrown in by Izuku Midoriya. Izuku quietly walked to the last available desk, which was behind Katsuki, without saying a word. This sparked more conversation among the students, including speculation about the sleeping bag figure. The man in the sleeping bag instructed everyone to quiet down, noting that it took them 4 seconds to do so and that they would need to be quicker next time. A certain blonde scoffed at his comment. The teacher explained that since he had been rudely awakened, they would have to get dressed in uniforms and take a test, instructing them to meet him in the PE field. If anyone needed directions, they were advised to ask someone else. With a few groans, the students grabbed the uniforms their teacher had produced from seemingly nowhere and made their way to the locker rooms, consulting maps and school directories along the way. Izuku expected this and changed into a uniform that was a bit tight around his arms and legs, but it was elastic, so he figured it would be manageable for most. Once Class 1A gathered at the field, they either stared at a member of the opposite DC or appeared bored. However, their boredom was soon interrupted as Aizawa walked in front of them, phone in hand and the other in his pocket. He asked if they remembered the tests they had done in junior high, and everyone nodded, though a few looked nervous at the mention of such tests. He explained that those tests were unfair because quirks couldn't be used, and they would be doing 5 of those tests. He added that the student who placed last would be expelled immediately, which caused an uproar among the students. Aizawa instructed them to quiet down again, and once they did, he explained the tests: the 50-meter dash, grip strength test, sustained sideways jump, long jump, and softball pitch. He produced a softball that had circuits poking out of it and called on Katsuki, who had scored the highest in the entrance exam, to demonstrate the softball pitch. Katsuki, with a confident smirk, stepped into the circle and threw the ball with an explosive force, surprising most of the students. The sensei announced the score, and the ball magically returned to him. He instructed everyone to prepare for the 50-meter dash. The students took turns, and so far, the best time was 3.45 seconds, achieved by Tenya Ida, who had engines in his legs. When it was Izuku's turn, he accidentally used his quirk to run past the finish line, clocking in at an impressive 2.13 seconds. Next was the grip strength test, where Mizo Shoji held the highest score of 500 kilograms, thanks to his 6 arms. The competition was heating up, and the students were eager to prove themselves. Again, Izuku used his quirk but didn't achieve a high score, landing a more modest result. He managed to lift 325 kilograms. Next was the sustained sideways jump, where Minoru Mineta surprisingly led with 80 successful jumps. Despite having won for all, Izuku lacked the agility and dexterity to match Mineta's performance, resulting in a score similar to his classmates, 32 jumps. The long jump followed, and Tsuyu Azui was in the lead, even with Katsuki using his explosions to gain an advantage. Tsuyu's score was an impressive 48 meters, while Izuku managed 47 meters, just shy of her mark. Finally, the softball pitch was dominated by Achiko Uraraka, who achieved an astounding score by making the ball weightless before throwing it. Izuku, knowing he couldn't surpass that, focused on getting under Katsuki's skin, scoring 705 meters. After a brief moment to let Izuku escape from Katsuki's wrath, it was clear that Izuku placed modestly in 6th, still behind Katsuki. Meanwhile, Toru Hagakure found herself in last place and was nearly expelled, but Izuku's stern look at their teacher, Shota Aizawa, ensured she remained in class for now. The following classes were relatively normal after the test on Class 1A's first day. They introduced themselves, and Midnight playfully flirted with Izuku, nearly revealing his hero identity. Minoru had a close call when he attempted to sneak into the girls' locker room. After 5 classes, Class 1A eagerly awaited their last teacher for the Foundational Hero Studies class, known as the most exciting class of the day. A booming voice echoed through the hallway as All Might entered, prompting Izuku to rest his head on his desk in exasperation. All Might, in one of his older costumes complete with a cape, announced that they would be participating in an indoor battle exercise. He emphasized the importance of looking like proper heroes, instructing everyone to grab a numbered suitcase from the wall. With no further ado, the class headed to the locker room to change into their hero costumes. Each costume was designed for practicality or aesthetics, and Izuku quickly donned his upgraded hero outfit, which included shin guards and improved armor along his forearms. After the battle exercise, Katsuki faced a ban from training for the rest of the week due to his reckless behavior. Izuku, on the other hand, was unconscious for the remainder of the training battles, which were less intense than his own. The matches went by swiftly, but the lottery system for team assignments set up by All Might proved to be unfair. Izuku found himself resting in the infirmary with Momo by his side, waiting for Recovery Girl to return. Both remained in their hero suits while the rest of their classmates had already left for the day. Eventually, Izuku stirred awake, and Momo expressed her relief at seeing him conscious. She hugged him, causing him to wince in pain, which reminded them both of the burn on his back. Just then, Recovery Girl entered, prompting Momo to quickly return to her chair. Recovery Girl informed them that Izuku's burn had set in during his sleep and would leave a scar, but once he changed, they could head home. Izuku got out of the infirmary bed, but Recovery Girl stopped him to heal his injuries with a gentle kiss on his hand, which left him feeling tired. After changing, he and Momo met up at the entrance to UA. They walked out together and were greeted by the sight of a limousine, which surprised Izuku as Momo approached it. Before she entered, he held the door open and looked at her face, not distracted by anything else. He asked if she would like to have dinner with him on Friday, and she seemed pleasantly surprised by the invitation. Momo agreed to the plan, suggesting he pick her up at 6, while her chauffeur watched Izuku with curiosity. After closing the door for her, Izuku walked to the train station, contemplating where to eat and what else to do. However, his thoughts were interrupted when the train came to an abrupt halt. Peering through the window amidst the chaos, he spotted a villain with an ice-based quirk causing trouble during rush hour. Determined to help, Izuku tightened his grip on his messenger bag and used the emergency exit to climb onto the roof of the train. From there, he observed the villain battling Kamui Woods, who was struggling against the icy foe. Kamui declared his intent to protect the civilians, while Izuku analyzed the villain's abilities, noting the potential weaknesses in the ice quirk. Of course, his strategy involved using a hand that transformed into a spike of ice to confront Kamui, but his hands also morphed into a spiked ball. The hero, who observed the battle calmly without the other two noticing him, thought about how he needed to head home afterward. He jumped off the top of the train and onto the railroad, surprising some passengers who noticed him. He called out to Woody, offering to handle the ice villain. Woody responded, telling Izuku to go ahead while he checked the train. Now, the silent ice villain and Izuku faced each other, one with a spike made of ice for a hand and the other not activating his quirk. Without a word, Izuku dropped his bag and took a self-defense stance, staring down the villain. The villain charged first, attempting to stab Izuku, but Izuku sidestepped to the left and deflected the ice spike. The villain stumbled forward, and Izuku took advantage of the moment, stepping on the villain's ice arm and back, holding his head with one hand while gripping the untransformed arm with the other. Izuku noted that the villain's quirk was limited to his right arm, stating that he would be behind bars before he could use it. In a swift move, the villain managed to cut Izuku's hand with a spike before attempting to escape. However, Izuku tightened his grip on the villain's head and arm, expressing frustration as he broke the ice hand with a single punch. Just then, the authorities arrived, and Izuku ensured the villain was handcuffed before allowing the officers to take him into custody. He grabbed his bag, saluted the train passengers, provided the officers with a note regarding payment, and leaped away with a small portion of one for all active. This was another day in the life of Izuku Midoriya as he returned home, where Inko tended to the cut on his palm. He pondered a few concerns about picking up Momo from her home, such as where they would eat, what he should wear, and how awkward things might become if something went wrong. However, those were worries for Friday, so he went to sleep after dinner with Inko. The next day began with Izuku's usual routine: showering, eating breakfast, dressing in his school uniform, and completing other necessary tasks. He kissed his mother's forehead and left for school. At school, Izuku went through the typical classes that often bored everyone. Aizawa had them analyze battle data, Midnight taught art history, Ectoplasm covered math, Present Mike taught English, and Cementos focused on literature. After all that, All Might returned to the class with less enthusiasm than before, which Izuku found somewhat agreeable. He announced a joint training session with Class 1B, which excited Izuku as he anticipated the chance to see more quirks and opponents that could help him improve. The class rushed to the locker rooms to change into their hero costumes. Once in the gym, Vlad King took control of both classes. He instructed everyone to pair up with someone from the other class for a sparring session. The students looked at each other with various reactions, but Izuku found himself drawn to a girl with orange hair. As the pairs formed, Katsuki was pulled away by Vlad King, while Itsuka approached Izuku. She asked if he wanted to spar, smiling cutely, which brightened Izuku's day. He agreed, and they walked toward one of the mats at the end of the gym. With a sudden shout, he attempted to sweep Itsuka's legs from under her. Ignoring the abrupt start, Itsuka backflipped to evade the attack, landing with a foot on Izuku's head. He quickly got back up, creating distance between them. Itsuka playfully reminded him that he could use his quirk. In response, he suggested she could call him Midoriya. She nodded, and he activated his quirk, appearing in front of her in a flash. However, before he could strike, she enlarged her hand and caught him in a firm grip. Izuku struggled slightly but realized he didn't want to hurt her to escape. He conceded, admitting she had won. They both stopped using their quirks, and he complimented her form, suggesting she work on speed and strength. Itsuka blushed at the praise, realizing the compliment was sincere. Maybe they could hang out on Saturday, but it was okay if she didn't want to. Izuku answered a bit absent-mindedly, and Itsuka's face lit up with a happy smile as they resumed sparring. After a couple of intense rounds, they paused for a break, knowing that their larger sparring matches were about to begin. Moments later, everyone gathered at the gym entrance where All Might and Vlad King stood before them. Vlad King asked who wanted to fight, and Katsuki immediately raised his hand, but they overlooked him. When no one else volunteered, Izuku stepped forward and sighed, asking who wanted to spar with him. A blonde student, slightly taller than him and dressed in a three-piece suit, emerged from the crowd. He introduced himself as Nito Monoma, boasting that Class 1A students should remember his name because he intended to defeat them all. Izuku walked to one side of the sparring mat, hands in his pockets, seemingly unfazed by Nito's bravado. Annoyed by the lack of attention, Nito took his position on the opposite side of the mat with a persistent smirk. All Might called for the match to begin, and Nito charged at Izuku, who mirrored the action. The first move saw Izuku leap over Nito and deliver a kick to his back, causing him to stumble forward. Angered, Nito charged again, and Izuku activated his quirk. As Nito approached, Izuku seized his shoulder and delivered a knee to his stomach. In the process, Izuku felt something brush against his arm but chose to ignore it. He jumped back to create distance, observing Nito, who still wore a confident smirk. A girl with vine-like hair from Class 1B commented that Monoma would win soon, prompting Izuku to glance over at his classmates, who didn't seem as enthusiastic as those from Class 1A. He asked how she could be so sure, adopting a more serious demeanor. The girl replied that Nito had copied his quirk, addressing him as Deku. Turning back to Nito, who continued to smirk, Izuku felt a sense of determination. He declared that he would win, and as Nito attempted to use the copied quirk, he collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Izuku remarked that there was a lesson to be learned, but it wouldn't matter if Nito had pushed himself too hard with his new ability. He walked over and lifted Nito by the collar, tossing him into All Might's arms. All Might announced that they would have to cancel the other matches to ensure young Monoma wasn't seriously injured. He instructed everyone to change and return to their classrooms. The students complied, heading to their locker rooms, some changing faster than others. Izuku, accustomed to quickly going through his routine with his quirk, was interrupted by a chorus of screams. He rushed to the source and found Itsuka using her quirk to throw Minoru out of UA. Realizing he should be cautious around the women in his life, he approached Itsuka, who called out to him. They walked together toward their classrooms, and she asked if he wanted to hang out on Saturday. Izuku, seeing a bit of himself in her, agreed, interrupting her hesitation. He asked if he could put his number in her phone, quickly entering it before returning the device. He noticed her contacts were sparse, aside from her parents, and told her to keep Saturday open. With that, he left to begin his daily hero patrol, now with 2 plans for the weekend and a potential dilemma awaiting him. After another successful patrol, Izuku returned home to find Inko preparing dinner. He decided to skip the details of the meal and fast forward to the next day. Friday's classes were routine, but Izuku received permission to leave hero studies for patrol, convincing All Might that facing a villain was more valuable than repetitive practice. However, he had a romantic dilemma to solve. He pondered how to pick up Yaoyorozu in a charming way. After changing into a dark green shirt and a black blazer, he completed his outfit with jeans and kept gloves on, just in case. He hoped that a 5-star dinner followed by rooftop adventures under beautiful lights would be enough for a memorable first date. As he prepared to leave, the door unexpectedly swung open, hitting him in the forehead. Inko appeared, curious about the occasion and teasingly asking if he had a girlfriend. Izuku rubbed the bump on his forehead, reminding himself that he was talking to his mother, and explained that a friend wanted to discuss something over dinner. Izuku rushed out of his small home, eager to meet Momo. He quickly realized he had forgotten to ask for her address, a rookie mistake. Pulling out his phone, he slowed his pace for safety as he dialed her number. She answered almost immediately. "Hello, Midoriya. Is there something you need?" He explained that he needed her address. Momo instructed him to go to the highest building he could find and look for a large white mansion on the outskirts of town. Confused by her instructions, he tried to ask for clarification, but the call ended abruptly. He thought to himself that she was either very organized or exceptionally clever as he began his ascent to the tallest building in sight. Once he reached a skyscraper, he noticed the city lights flickering on, but his focus remained on the white mansion in the distance. With determination, he leaped across rooftops, a trail of green electricity following him, until he arrived at the Yayarosa mansion. The gate was closed, but a buzzer was located nearby. After pressing the buzzer, he took a deep breath to steady himself. He announced that he was there to see Momo. The gate opened, and Momo stepped out, dressed in a lovely white top adorned with floral designs and a red skirt that complemented her figure. Izuku complimented her appearance, and they began walking down the street. He suggested taking a shortcut and lifted Momo into a princess carry. She gasped in surprise as he leaped onto a building, and instinctively she wrapped her arms around his neck to hold on. As they soared through the skies of Japan, Momo loosened her grip and marveled at the city lights below. A few moments later, Izuku landed gracefully in front of a bustling restaurant. Momo looked at him in disbelief, but he smiled, leading her past the line and straight to the hostess, who inquired about their reservation. Izuku provided the name Deku, showing her his hero ID, which served as a form of identification. The hostess welcomed them and invited them to choose any seat. Izuku guided Momo to the second floor, which was nearly empty except for a few heroes dining casually. Their reserved area featured a glass roof for stargazing and windows overlooking the streets, with a small aquarium built into the wall. Momo expressed her amazement at the restaurant, and Izuku explained that it was founded by a retired hero who supported fellow heroes. As they settled at a small table for two, he asked what she wanted to discuss. She looked up from her menu, recalling the reason for their dinner. Momo thanked him for saving her during training, surprised he had gone to such lengths for dinner. Izuku chuckled, leaning back to admire the stars, one of which twinkled brightly. He mentioned that he thought she would enjoy such an outing, but if not, they could always go to a movie or the mall next time. Momo smiled and said she would like that. Just then, a waiter arrived to take their orders, and after he left, they resumed their conversation. Momo shared her feelings about not wanting special treatment due to her family or status, joking about her father's expectations for her to lead his company after graduating from UA. Izuku received a text from MT Lady, who spotted him in the restaurant. He explained to her that he was on a date, which surprised Momo. He reassured her that it was fine, as everyone needed to eat. MD Lady returned to her meal with her date, Kamui Woods. Momo asked if this was a date, and Izuku responded by asking if she wanted it to be. Their food arrived, interrupting the moment. He suggested that having dinner together at a restaurant certainly counted as a date. He eagerly dug into his katsudon bowl. Momo, feeling a bit nervous, mentioned she thought they were just going to talk. A blush crept onto her cheeks as she admitted she wasn't used to this kind of situation. Izuku reassured her that he was still getting accustomed to the hero life, but she might just make it special for him. Grateful, Momo suggested they focus on their meal. The night continued with light banter and hints from Izuku, while Momo remained adorably awkward. The food was exquisite, rivaling even Inko's cooking as they discussed school, their quirks, and their mutual dislike for Minoru. Quite the bonding was happening there. Eventually, their dinner came to an end as the moon rose higher in the sky, and Izuku walked out of the restaurant with Momo by his side. Despite the late hour, there was still a line outside the restaurant. Just as they had started, Izuku picked up Momo again and jumped through the city, showing her a few more spots and views that could not be captured in a picture. This lovely night had to come to an end as Izuku left Momo at her manor, but not before he did something he would always cherish. At the gates to the estate, he was about to let her go home, but instead he gently pulled her closer and turned her around, sharing a sweet kiss. He expressed how lovely the day had been and suggested they do it again sometime. Momo responded affectionately, and just then, a yell from the manor prompted her to leave. She waved goodbye as she headed towards her home. Saturday arrived, a day for relaxing and spending valuable moments with friends and family. For Izuku Midoriya, it was another day to spend with a beautiful girl, making him feel quite fortunate, especially since many girls had already crossed out a certain short-haired boy from their lists. He prepared for the day with his usual morning routine, which left him in jeans, red high tops, a blue shirt, and a dark green vest. As he left his room, he caught a whiff of Inko's cooking wafting from the kitchen, marveling at how lucky he felt to have such a wonderful life. Without waiting for an answer, he made his way to the kitchen and greeted Inko, but his phone rang just then. He picked it up, noticing the lack of a proper caller ID, and answered it. "Hello," he said. "Ah, Midoriya-kun," came the cheerful voice on the other end. "Kendo? Is there something you need?" he asked. "I didn't ask where we were meeting today. Is it okay to meet at that new cafe?" "Sure, but let's just have some fun afterward," he suggested, turning away from his mother as he walked a bit further. He whispered into his phone that he would show her around town, hinting at something beautiful before hanging up. Looking back, he found Inko standing right behind him with a playful smile. She teased him about being a two-timer, but he quickly clarified that they were just friends and that yesterday was merely a dinner conversation. Inko warned him that a girl might not appreciate him spending time with another girl before returning to the kitchen. Feeling a mix of excitement and nerves, Izuku left home with his wallet and phone, using one for all to reach the newest cafe in town. He arrived at a small establishment called A Little Cafe, which seemed oddly fitting. Inside, he found the cafe nearly empty, with 2 employees dressed in simple outfits of black dresses under white aprons. As he entered, a waitress at the counter greeted him warmly, recognizing him immediately. She expressed her excitement at seeing a hero like him in their cafe. Izuku, feeling a bit shy, explained that he was just waiting for someone. Just then, the bell on the door rang, and he spotted a familiar girl with orange hair entering. As Kendo approached, the waitress led them to a table by the window. They ordered their drinks, with Izuku opting for warm green tea and Itsuka choosing a small cup of coffee. An awkward silence fell between them until Itsuka broke it, asking how being a hero was going for him. Izuku noted her outfit, a simple cerulean dress with an indigo cardigan and matching high tops, which he found quite nice. He shared that being a hero was interesting but challenging, especially with many heroes focused on money rather than the true essence of heroism. Itsuka listened intently, sipping her coffee, and asked what he had planned for the day. He suggested a walk around the park or the mall, hinting at a little surprise for later. As he took a sip of his drink, he playfully noted that their story was coming to an end, leaving Itsuka puzzled but intrigued. With a light-hearted farewell, Izuku left her with a smile, feeling optimistic about their day ahead. Izuku Midoriya had always dreamed of becoming a hero, and now, with the power of one for all coursing through him, he felt a surge of confidence he had never known before. As he approached UA High School, he had learned to harness this incredible ability, using it only when absolutely necessary. He stood up for himself and others, embodying the spirit of a true hero without flaunting his strength. With this newfound confidence, Izuku transformed into a more charismatic and intelligent individual. He carried an air of mystery that seemed to draw others to him, especially the girls who found themselves captivated by his presence. As he navigated the challenges of high school life, Izuku faced various obstacles and encounters that tested his resolve. He was determined to prove himself, not just as a wielder of one for all, but as a person worthy of the title of hero. Throughout his journey, he encountered unexpected situations that required quick thinking and adaptability. While he had a few core ideas in mind for his path, he remained open to the twists and turns that life at UA would present. Izuku was ready to embrace whatever came his way, knowing that each challenge would bring him closer to his ultimate goal of becoming a symbol of peace and justice.